We're here with head men's soccer coach Dale Parker. Fortunately, no wins this week, but the defense really stepped it up, only allowing 2 goals, 1 goal in each match compared to the 7 goals allowed the first week around. Obviously, you're looking for different results, but if you don't mind just kind of touching base on the improvement on the back end of the squad.
Yeah, I think we showed some naivety in week 1. Defensively, we're a little bit exposed, a little bit open, which is a consequence of how we want to play. We want to be a bit more expansive. We want to attack, but against the opponents that we've played, it's not always as simple as that. But yeah, you know, the defensive performance in both games was very, very good. I was more impressed with the way we played on the ball. Defensively, we didn't have to do too much in both of the games, to be honest. I thought we controlled both games really, really well. Arguably the better team in both games. In particular, you know, on Friday after conceding the goal, there was nobody but us that were trying to create chances and trying to win the match. And then yesterday we were just bitterly disappointed with our inability to take our chances. You know, the defence did their job. Although we let in a sloppy one, you know, at this level, you'd imagine that the chances that we're creating, that you'd be able to put those away, and that's the biggest concern we have at the moment is putting the ball in the other net.
You talk about the chances, and against Palm Beach Atlantic, Giacomo had a really good chance towards the later stage of that match to tie it up. Against Lynn, Jed Smith had a nice header in the box. It looked like Jonah Miller had a nice strike in the box as well. So you talk about those chances. It's not like this team is just, parking the bus and trying to prevent, no goals, go 0-0. There's a lot of opportunities coming, and, you had the 2 goals against Rollins, who was number 7 at the time. So it does seem like there's a lot of offensive threats on this squad. One of them who helped create a goal against Florida Tech, Carson Graves, I've noticed, looks very composed whenever he's on the field. Good stride, looks very comfortable with the ball. One of the many players that we kind of alluded to the last time we talked about with this brand new squad. If you don't mind just kind of talking about his progression and development early on in this season.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned there, the style that we're trying to play and the brand of football we're trying to play is reliant upon, having really good attacking players that can do some damage in the attacking third. The problem we have this year is we're relying on inexperienced players. Yes, we brought a couple of guys in with experience. We've got guys returning from last year who we expect to kick on. But Carson's one of the young American players who's come into this as a bit of an unknown. Didn't really know what we're going to get from him. But what he's done really well, he's taken to the way we want to play, and he's listening really well. He's doing exactly what we want him to do defensively, which is getting him more minutes on the pitch, and then now we're starting to see what he's capable of doing on the ball. He's one of these players that, maybe year 1 he's not going to jump out the blocks and score as many goals as potentially he will in year 3 and year 4, but he's definitely someone we're nurturing, we're trying to take care of, and really bed him into what we're trying to do. He's a long-term project that I think's got a lot to learn, but at the same time he's got a lot to offer this program. So yeah, for sure we're excited about him, but at the same time we can't be relying on an 18-year-old with to put all the weight on his shoulders to score the goals for it. It's got to come from other players, but he's certainly one of the guys who surprised us a little bit this year.
At least for me, another surprise. Zach Meyer played on the Dev squad last year. Called him up. A couple of guys actually from the Dev squad got brought up. He's had an assist this year already. Another younger player who looks very comfortable in his role in the midfield. Not a lot of schools have the ability to field a full-fledged Dev squad. If you don't mind just kind of touching base on the ability for guys like Zach to maybe play their first year in the Dev system, learn the way of play, learn how Landers operated, and then possibly have the chance to move up and, for circumstances, take advantage of the possibilities such as this.
Yeah, I think he's been the beneficiary of having a strong program overall. When you've got 50-something players in your program and you operate a development team, I use the word properly loosely, but if you do it right and you work with the players who are in your system and in your program, when guys get to a level where you can move them into the first team, it's an easier transition. I think with Zach, with me coming in the spring and working with both groups, Zach was definitely one of the guys who benefited from that and fits into the way I want to play really well. Very, very talented player on the ball. Just one or two things that we had to improve in his game with the defensive side of it, and what can he contribute when we're trying to press high versus when we're defending a bit lower. And he's a sponge. He picks up this information very quickly. There's no doubt in his ability on the ball, but he's definitely benefited from a couple of years in the development team, as have a few other guys that we've moved up. There's a few guys as well that we haven't yet been able to give as much of an opportunity to that have come through the development team, and we want to make sure that it is a breeding ground for players who eventually come and play in the first team. It's not going to be like that for everybody, but if we can progress guys through playing the way that we want to play, that transition is going to be easier when they get into the first team. So yeah, really happy for him. There'll be a few guys, we've got a development team game tonight, there'll be a few guys we're keeping an eye on, but that's going to be definitely a pattern of things to come for this program.
And the last player I'd like to touch base on, I promise to stay away from the individuals, but Juan Rodriguez, you probably didn't expect him to be the starting keeper, and we talk about just taking advantage of the opportunities. Against Florida Tech, the whole squad looked a little shaky, just kind of, possibly first game nerves, but the last 2 weeks, this past week, makes 2 saves in each game. Unfortunately, just 1 goal. He does his part for the most part. If you don't mind, just kind of, again, talking about him just taking advantage of the opportunity, him kind of being thrust into the moment with Lorenzo kind of being out for the time being and kind of making the most of this.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret. Lorenzo is a phenomenal goalkeeper. He's a special talent, and not having him available right now is difficult because he's a big part of what we're doing here. So, Juan's been I've known him for a number of years. He's played for me previously in one of my summer seasons, and he's just a fantastic personality, fantastic character, and threw him in the deep end a little bit against Florida Tech. I'm not sure he was much to blame in that game, but we wanted to get him out the firing line. I think him and Connor have been competing pretty well for that number 2 spot, and I think this week was right to use him in both games. And in all honesty, he hasn't had a whole lot to do. We've been playing really well, and most of his work has been in the communication, being on the ball with his feet, and then we're asking him to make a save when we really need him to, and he's done that. Last night, he made a fantastic save when we needed him to keep us in the game. We knew we were going to be expansive and giving up at least 1 chance in the second half, and he's made a fantastic save, and he's really stepped up. We've been asking this group of goalkeepers, big group of goalkeepers, to step up in the absence of Lorenzo, and he's been the one for me that's really taken that. And yes, he has things he needs to work on. He needs some technical aspects of his game he needs to improve, but in terms of his character, his personality, his stature, his leadership, and his likability amongst the group, he's been fantastic this week. And as long as Lorenzo's out, I'm hoping for that to continue.
Obviously, the non-conference portion of the schedule doesn't get any easier for you guys. A long trip down to Tampa to take on the University of Tampa, a Spartan program that this squad battled in the NCAA tournament last year. I believe they're 1-1-1. Some ups and downs for that squad, but what should we expect from this Bearcat squad making the long trip down to the Sunshine State?
Well, it's gonna be a difficult game. It's just copy and paste right from the last 4. It's not easy, and again, this conversation would be different if we were 2-3 years down the line and built a team that was ready to go and attack these fixtures. We're trying to do all this in such a quick turnaround with a new team, new guys, new coaching staff, new way of doing things. It's not easy to then go to places like this and get results. So I think we have to look beyond the result a little bit. Yes, the result is your primary goal, is to get a result. But if we perform the way we have done in these last 2 games, if we take that into the next few games, it's inevitable that a result's going to come. So we have to tread that line and find that balance of playing protective versus trying to play our way, playing for a result versus playing for a performance. Because hopefully performances over time will give you results. So we'll see. We've got not long to prepare, but we have some time to try and make an educated decision on what we're going to do. We need to watch a little bit more Tampa before we consolidate our ideas. But what we will be is prepared. What we will be is optimistic. We're certainly not going to be sitting on our heels and hoping we get something out of the game. We're going to try and force the issue. And if we win, it'll be deserved. If we lose the game, it'll probably be because of a little bit of naivety. But I tell you this, we're going to go there with with open minds. We're going to try and win the game, and we're going to try and do some damage. I keep saying this. We're playing these Sunshine State teams, but eventually these teams are going to be talking about us, and this conference is going to be, spoken about in a little bit of a higher vibe, because we can't keep just bowing down to the Sunshine State teams. It's great that we're playing these teams. It's great that we're getting this experience now, but we're going to be defiant. We're going to be, obviously the goal is to put us on top of the pile, and we need to play these teams and figure out what that looks like in order to do that. So Tampa can expect a challenging game, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Hopefully, we're going to get a result at some point.